they're inside. But if it can't be torn, you can't bring it back inside if it became impure. We're talking about this case of the me'il. It's like this one case where you're not allowed to tear it. So he says, "Machnisa bepachas mishalish al shalish mechabsei." You would allow it to enter in to the temple less than a 3x3 amount of it. So less than a garment is entering into the temple. I guess you would like fold it up and just allow a little bit in. So, Mishum Shenemar Le'Yikreh, it says that you can't tear it. So, Moisiv Ravada Barava has a question. Ha'oven v'arachanim b'mishum shalish al shalish. There's certain types of material that are thick, and these are the materials that are not woven, but there's certain, I think it's just pressed. So, the way it was used was because it wasn't woven, I think it was hard to bend, so they would use it more as a mat. So the three finger measurement didn't apply to things that weren't actual cloth. Here it needed to be 3 tefachim, which is much larger. A tefach is like a fist. So 3 tefachim is by 3 tefachim, as opposed to 3 fingers by 3 fingers. So why did you say that you have to let in 3 fingers, less than 3 fingers by less than 3 fingers? There's an assumption here that the me'il, because the threads were so thick, they were 12 strands of string in each thread. So it was a much thicker sort of garment. So it really should be a 3x3 tefachim as opposed to 3x3 fingers. The Gemara says, Agav aviyam chashivei. Because it's an entire garment. When do we say that such a garment is 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim? That's only if that's the whole garment. So it needs to be 3 tefachim by 3 tefachim to be considered a garment. But once it is already a garment, then a 3x3 fingers would be considered a cloth, that if you would bring that in, you would be considered that you brought something, a cloth that's tameh. So agav aviyam means because of its father, it's like grandfathered in, that now it's considered a cloth even by a 3x3 because it's a much larger garment. Gemara says, "V'boy shiva samamanim." Gemara has a very interesting question here. There are 7 types of soaps. Well, one of them is soaps, but 7 types of cleaning agents that are used on stains of blood. And one of the cleaning agents is urine. There's ammonium in the urine, which is cleansing. Now, there's a problem. It says in Machnisin Meiraglayim B'Mikdash, you're not allowed to bring urine in. So if the cleansing of the garment that has a blood stain on it from the korban chatas needs to be washed in the holy place, how are you going to bring that into? Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabbi Baravua that the blood of a chatas and the stain of tzaras needs to be washed with the seven samamanim, herbs, but it means cleansing agents. Vitanya, and it was taught in a brisa that we're familiar with. Elasei machnis meraglayim lamikdash. But you're not allowed to bring urine into the temple. I'm on top of 95b. And if you'll say that what you do is you mix the urine in with the other 7 things, so it gets nullified in there, and then it's not a problem to bring it into the temple. And you wash the whole thing in this one big mixture. The Gemara says Vatanan, but we have a Mishnah that says like a sidron. It says that if you do them out of order, they have to be washed in a certain order. this item first, then that, and then yes, the breakdown, the chemical breakdown needs to be with a certain order for it to cleanse. Or if you mix them all together, it's no good. So you can't say that you're mixing it into the maybe you'll just mix it into one. But it says you have to scrub it 3 times with each of these items. Tanan, it was taught. It says that's what it was taught, that each one needs to be scrubbed individually. Rather, you were able to mix it in with reik tafel. Reik tafel is a saliva, a spit. If a person didn't eat the whole night and before he washes his mouth out, there's a very astringent spit in his mouth, that could be used for cleansing. Maybe that's what the animals do. They lick their wounds. Maybe I don't know. But so reik tafel was allowed to be mixed with the other items, that other cleansing agents. So that's how you were able to wash it. That each one you would mix the reik tafel together with each one. So therefore, because it wasn't isolated, it wasn't alone, the urine, you were able to bring it into the temple because it had the reik tafel in it.
So it's bittul? What was bittul?
Yeah, I don't know if it needs mamash din bittul or it just needs that it's not alone. If it's majority, I don't know. Okay, that's a good point. You want to drink? Okay. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Forgive me, I'll tell you, but
Should I? Okay. The Mishnah says, "Echad shebishul bay," whether the pot was cooked in, or if you pour into this pot, hot karban chatas. You didn't cook in it, but you just took from another pot and you poured it into this pot. What do you call that? Klisheni, right? But actually, we're not referring to the klisheni aspect. We're referring to it's called iri klirishin. You poured from a hot pot on top of this pot, on the surface of this pot, which is hotter than a klisheni. See, klisheni is when I then take something and I put it into this pot that has hot soup in it. And let's say this was cooked on the fire. This is called a klirishin. This cup here would be a klisheni. But when is it a klisheni? If I pour the soup into this, and then I put a potato into the soup. So the potato is being cooked by a klisheni. We say a klisheni doesn't cook. But I'm not discussing the potato. I'm discussing the actual material of the pot. That's not called a klisheni. That's called iri klirishin, because when I poured, it's hotter than a klisheni. I poured directly from a first pot. Directly, it fell on that pot. That's called iri klirishin. That actually cooks according to Rabbeinu Tam. That actually does cook.
It's not a klisheni, you're saying?
Klisheni is when, after it's in this, I then put something on top. That's a klisheni. This is called iri klirishin. Pouring from a klirishin onto something.
This is a cooked pot.
This is a second pot.
Yeah, that is cooked
That
by the hot water.
Well, this was, let's say, a dry pot.
Yeah.
I poured hot water and hot soup in it. That's iri klirishin. If I then take a substance and put it inside that would be considered klisheni. And we know the rule is klisheni doesn't cook.
You're allowed to do that, right?
On Shabbos not. We have a chumrah because certain things cook in a klisheni. It's called kali abishal. We don't do it on Shabbos into a klisheni. You don't take the water from the cup that you put right under, the cup that you put under the urn. It's called a klisheni. You don't use that klisheni.
Right.
You pour it into another cup.
Right.
Okay. So even if you poured into it, it still needs to be kashered because it's like we said before, it has chatas. You can't use it now for other things, and the chatas overnight becomes nicer. So echad kachi kadashim, echad kachi kalam tunim riku shtifa. Doesn't matter what type of karban, holy of holies or secondary of lesser holiness. It needs to be purged. Reb Shimon says kachim kalam mean tunim rikush shtifa. Reb Shimon says kachim kalam don't need that. We'll have to figure out why. Now, Rashi speaks out that it needs to be kashered, but it doesn't need the merikush shtifa halacha that is specifically in the temple and all of those details that go along with it of merikush shtifa, the special din of doing it in the temple itself. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught asher tevushal bai, that it was cooked in it. Ainli ela shebishal bai. I only know that it was cooked in it. But let's say you poured it boiling water or boiling into it, but it wasn't. This pot was not directly on the fire. This was the pot that received from the pot that was on the fire. How do you know that that also needs to be cleansed? That was cooked in it, because it says ba yishaver, in it should be broken. So, in general, the pronoun, which means that it's not as specific, means that it's including something else. Boy, Rami Bar Chama, Rabbi Bar Chama has a question. You just told me that it doesn't really need to be cooked in it. It's just the fact that it's absorbed in it, that's enough. Right? It wasn't cooked in it. But because you poured hot into it, so it absorbed. And that's already enough. So Rami Bar Chama takes it the other way. He says, let's say you have an oven, and you have a spit that goes over the oven, and you put the rotisserie or something, a spit that goes over it, and you put the animal on that spit, on the pole, but it doesn't touch the actual oven. So here you have cooking without absorption. You just told me that absorption without cooking, you have to cleanse it. What about cooking without absorption? Do you have to cleanse it there? What is the Torah concerned about? The absorption with cooking, or even cooking without absorption? Is it
absorption or the cooking?
No, cooking. No.
Is it cooking with absorption, or is it cooking even without absorption? Amarava. Rav is his brother-in-law. Actually, Rav is his, I think maybe his brother-in-law, maybe his wife's second husband. Says Tashma, Echad Shabishal by Vechad Shil Sechrei Tayach, whether he cooked in it or whether he poured into it hot. Balua Balai Bishal like a Mibaylan. Oh, Rav is trying to bring a proof that you only need one of them, even if it wasn't cooked in it, but because it got absorbed, that's enough. So the same thing should apply to cooking without absorption. The Gemara says absorption without cooking. That wasn't my question. Kikami Bailan, what is our question? Bishal Balei Belua. Cooking without absorption. My. So Tashma, I'm sorry.
It's what the whole concept, what they're arguing between is a portion that you might Kodashim will mix with Chulin, right? If I understand correctly.
That was the basic on
the basic. Okay. Just want to understand. Where's the cookies?
But there's another issue. There's another issue that because it was holy, it can't be left for overnight and all of those.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just.
Tashma, come and listen. Tamar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Baravua. Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabbi Baravua, possibly his father-in-law, I think. Taner Shal Mikdash, a oven that's in the base of Mikdash, Shal Matechasaya, that was made out of metal. Now, why did they make it out of metal? Probably because they shouldn't have to break it. Because if it would be made out of pottery, the only way to cleanse pottery is to break it.
Yes.
So they made it out of metal. The Isal Kadaitach Bishal Balai Bilua Lai Kapid. You could read it. There's two ways of reading this Gemara. The Bach has it exactly the opposite, but it means the same thing. If we would say that cooking without absorption is not a problem, Navid Shalcheres, you could have made the oven out of clay, and you just don't let it touch. It's just right? You put a spit over it, and you let it roast like that. Doesn't need a rotisserie. It won't absorb if it's not a problem. That was Rambam Chama's question. Must be the fact that they needed to make it out of metal was because that you still have to kasher it even without absorption. Probably the bottom was dirt, and it was just a square that was open on the top and open on the bottom, but the bottom was on the ground. So whatever would drip down would just fall into the ground. It won't make it treif. It won't make it not treif. It won't make it sanctified, right? And on the top, it's not touching, and on the sides, it's not touching. So if that's not a problem, you could have done that. The Gemara says, "Kivin dekasher menachas daf yasam betaner vikal bishul belua of dinan shel matechas." You're only discussing the animal. What about the carbon mincha that was baked in the oven? That you had to put on the side. You're not going to avoid that. You're not going to do that on a rotisserie. So therefore, it needed to be made out of metal. Okay, let's stop over here. We got to a good spot.